Welcome to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, the slightly unhinged marketing podcast for home builders and beyond. I'm your host, Sarah Haynes, also known as the Pixel Wizard, and my goal is to tackle the tough stuff that goes in behind the scenes in marketing and offer actionable tips, creative insights, and a little bit of humor to spark some creativity. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get started. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Just Make It Pretty podcast. Today, I have a super exciting episode. I have Kevin Weitzel here with me, and we are going to be talking about building a brand that's unapologetically you. And I just could not think of a better guest to have on for this topic. Kevin is a total icon in the industry, and I'm just so excited to have him. Not that he needs an introduction, but if you don't know who Kevin is, he is the partner at Outhouse, and he hosts the Home Builder Digital Marketing Podcast, which I'm sure all of you are also listening to if you are here. So, Kevin, thank you so much for joining me. And I want to give you a second to say anything that I might have missed in my little introduction there, and just give you a second to talk.
That's pretty much it. I'm Kevin Weitzel. I've been in the industry for 10 years. I'm a junior partner here at Outhouse. I am the co-host of the Home Builder Digital Marketing Podcast. It's a very hard thing to say for me. We need a shorter name for our podcast. Just make it pretty. It's so much easier.
You should have thought of that, Kevin.
and that's really about it. That's pretty much me in a nutshell. I'm a father of two, and that's me.
Awesome. I think I was really excited when you were like, oh, let's go do the podcast together, because as far as building like authentic brands and brands that people remember, like you've got one of those brands in the industry. Like everyone knows you and you show up the same everywhere you see you. So I think this is going to be a really exciting and fun topic, and just to get to know you a little bit more. So it's going to be great. And then for our listeners that have listened before, we do our unhinged rapid fire questions. So Kevin, you're going to get some of those today too. And we're just going to warm up. They're random, but I was really excited you helped with this too. So let's get into it. So our first question is, you have made it known that you like to eat, which who doesn't? We also are like big into food over here. So what is your favorite dish?
Anything in a casserole dish, but if I had to call one thing out,
Lasagna. Awesome. I love lasagna. That was actually the very first meal that I ever learned to make when I was a kid. So love it. Now, do you make it from scratch or do you buy the frozen kind?
I eat whatever somebody else prepares,
Oh, perfect.
but
That's a great
preferably homemade, or at least hand prep, not just some frozen dish. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, also, if Kevin, he has got some iconic sideburns. So tell us about the sideburns. Do you ever shave them? Where did that come from?
I do. So I served 8 years in the United States Marine Corps. I hated shaving and I hated running, both of which you absolutely have to do on a daily basis in the Corps. And when I got out, I was like, I'm never shaving again. I found out that I had this section of my face right around the goatee area where I just get really itchy and I look like a meth addict. So I just had to shave. So I tried everything. I tried a porn stash. I tried a Fu Manchu. I tried a soul patch. I did a goatee. I did an Amish jawbone. The thing that stuck was the sideburns. Number one, I know they look silly. I understand, yes, they look silly. It's not like if nobody else in an entire football stadium has sideburns like this, it's different, unique, and also silly looking that nobody else wants them. But my mother, when I got out of the Corps and I just grown this just ridiculous beard, she basically asked me, she said, look, can you at least shave one day a year so you're not a dirtbag? She had it in her mind that people that always have facial hair are they're not trustworthy. There's just something off. It was just her little ism that she had. So I made a promise to my mom, and now that she's been gone for a good 4 years now, I made a promise to her that I will shave at least once a year. So every once in a while I shave, and it's not just because of my mom. It's also because sometimes they just get out of whack and not even with each other. So I just shave them off to start over because I don't have the patience to try to fix them.
So funny. So do you have a specific day? It's March 11th. We got to shave, or is it just random?
No, it's usually just that if I haven't done it throughout the entire year, the last day of the year, I will shave just to keep mom's promise. But usually it's just whenever they get so unruly and unkempt where I start looking like a homeless person, I actually have to shave them. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's such a better answer than I even thought. Okay, now I don't know if you play golf. I have a feeling that you might. Have you ever gotten a hole in one?
I have had 3 of them.
Wait.
2 on the same exact hole, both with my father when I was a child, once, and they were about 4 years apart. And then the third one was at the time, the third longest recorded hole in one in the world, which was 355 yards. It was on a par 4. I just happened to crack off this drive and it dropped in the hole. I was on in Japanese ABC. I got interviewed by Japanese ABC, and they came to the place that I worked at the time. I got golf clubs from Ping Carson Manufacturing, which is Ping Golf. They set me up with a set of clubs because I was only using like a mixed match Ping set at the time. But yeah, 300. I've had three of them.
That's so cool. I've had a hole in one in mini golf. Does that count?
Yeah, same thing.
It's the
It's still a
same.
hole in
Like
one.
no one put me on TV for it, unfortunately, but all right. And the last one, how many countries have you been to?
I had 8 years in the United States Marine Corps, as I mentioned.
Mhm.
During that time, because of my job, I was an 8541, which is a garrison sniper. I had to step foot in many countries. So we would always make it a practice that if we were near a border, we would make sure that we get to that border to step foot in yet another country. So I've absolutely had my toe in over 83, or not over, but 83 countries. So almost, I think roughly, we counted them up one time, roughly 70% of the countries in Africa, a lot in the Middle East, and surprisingly enough, none of them were ever vacation spots. The Marine Corps does not send you, contrary to
Yeah.
belief when I went in, because I signed up thinking I get to travel the world, go to beautiful places. No, they send you to every armpit on the planet.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, that's gonna take me a long time to catch up with you there. I do not have ADD for sure. That's so interesting. That's cool. I would have done the same thing though. I was like, I'm gotta go across the border just so I can like add it on my list. You should have a map or something where you
I did that for my kids. I actually made one for my kids, and there were countries that I put that I actually did service in, and then there was companies that I
Mhm.
just put my toe in. And one of them that they still get a kick out of to this day was when we were in Somalia, we went to the Djibouti border. So we could say that we touched the Djibouti, or put our toe in Djibouti. So our four-man team all took our Humvee. We went to Djibouti and went to the guard station. And we were like, can we just step over? And they're like, yeah. So we took a picture with them. I've got a picture somewhere, but it's cool. Djibouti. Whoever decides, oh, I'm just going to go to Djibouti. But it's funny,
So
just, yeah.
yes, you're probably the first person I've ever met that's been there. All right. Thank you, Kevin. That's like my favorite part of the episodes because it's just so random. But let's get into our topic today. Like I said, we are talking about building authentic brands, essentially. And so I know a little bit about your story, but I've heard also about it. So you've had a unique path. And I would love it if you could take us back to the beginning and walk us through how you ended up in the home building industry. And like you said, the Marine Corps and all that. Tell me the short story there.
So we talking like all the way back to a smoke-filled room when my mom gazed eyes with a gentleman on the other side of the room, and they just got together and they made like brown chicken, brown cow time, and then produced me. Not quite that far back, or a little bit further in the future.
I think we all know how that worked.
Oh,
So,
okay. I do have a little bit of a Forrest Gump past. My girlfriend teases me all the time. She says, "Oh, we get to hear another Forrest Gump story." But I'll just start with this. Everybody has their unique beginning of their childhood, and my childhood was just slightly different. I'm the son of a Holocaust survivor. That's definitely something that comes into play as far as some of my philosophies in life. It's just the way that people should be treated and the way that people shouldn't be treated. If there was 11 total siblings, only four made it out of concentration camps. So that is a little bit of a rough start for her. She got adopted by a doctor's family and by all means had a golden ticket. She had the pathway in the United States, that is, up in Michigan. She had the golden ticket to make her pathway to where she had the best education. She could go to any school she wanted to. She didn't have to worry about, not that she didn't have to worry about money, but it really wasn't that big of a deal. However, once she got into college, she met her first husband and gave up everything she was doing in her life to make sure that he could become a geological engineer. Okay. At least I think that's what it was called. And after her kids got to about 7 or 8 years old, and he got his degree and got his career started, divorce. So she was literally a single mother with two kids. So what does she do? Fast forward a couple years forward, she meets my dad. My dad was a lifelong alcoholic. One of those things where he was very good. He's very charismatic. He could be functional enough to get the job and lose the job, get the woman and let down the woman. But you always knew when he entered the room. So I did learn from my father that you can be that person that enters the room and everybody knows you're there, but not be that person that's such a sloppy drunk or such a letdown that you're just going to get kicked to the curb later on. So that's one thing I did take away from him. Plus, how to tip a waitress, because you should never go into a place. If you can't, my father said, if you can't afford to leave a quality tip, you have no business eating out. So I've always had that rule close to heart. But to fast forward to that, so my father and mother divorced when I was 3. And therefore, my mother was again now a single mother, but not with two kids, but now with three kids. And I was only 3 years old. So she had a pretty hefty lift. She worked job to job and she had that not imposter syndrome. She had the syndrome that she felt like she wasn't good enough. So she was always working these menial jobs, assistant type jobs, jobs that really never had anywhere to go, and was constantly going from job to job, just hurdle after hurdle. So she was perpetually in that poor state, just enough to be broke, but not so much to be on any kind of government assistance. Growing up a very poor child, I had my first job at 10. I coerced my mother into charging on her Montgomery Ward's credit card a lawnmower, and I was mowing lawns through the summer to earn money to buy school clothes because I got embarrassed going to school wearing my brother's 7-year-old hand-me-downs. Bell bottoms weren't cool in the late 70s. They just weren't, but in the early 80s. But that's all I had access to, my brother's old crappy clothes. I did learn that work ethic at a very young age. You have to go out there and grind. You have to get the job done. I went door to door finding clients. And I think at the time I was only charging $4 or $5 to mow an entire lawn. It was nuts. But I made enough money doing that one summer to not only pay my mom back for the lawnmower, but also start buying all my own school clothes. And I've been working literally ever since doing one thing or another. I did very well in school. When you come from a poor family, your real only option out is typical education. So I did very well in school. I was not top of my class, but up in the upper echelon of the class. And then afterwards, I found out that, hey, when you're poor and you do have a academic scholarship, you still have to cover a lot of that portion. I was at that stage in my life where I was just like, you know what, that's not going to work out. So I went in the military. I went in the United States Marine Corps. I was actually going to go in the Air Force first. They weren't taking anybody. I was going to go in the Navy second. But when I showed up at the recruiter's office, they were closed. And a Marine walks by carrying pizzas in dress blues. And he goes, "We're a Department of the Navy. Can I answer any questions for you?" I'm like, "Sure." I signed up that night. I was in. So the rest is history.
Like, they've got pizza, we're in.
Cool. One of the coolest uniforms, arguably in the military, and then also carrying pizzas. What am I going to do? I had no choice but to sign up. So anyway, so I signed up, and then after that, I did my time in the Marine Corps. After that, I went back to the bicycle industry. Just before, while I was in high school, in addition to getting my education, I was also a professional cyclist. I made it from the junior ranks all the way up to pro in a 4-year span, and raced. Actually making pretty good money. I think one year, my junior year in high school, I think I made $19,000 just in wins from bicycle races. And back then, that was a good chunk of money, especially being that I was in high school. And so, got a little lesson there. So then fast forward to after that, I came back to the bicycle industry and I founded and opened my own bicycle shop. It was actually a triathlon shop here in Arizona called Tribe Multisport. I operated that until I sold that in 2011. We had growth. I started with 30 grand. I sold it for 600,000, which was not too shabby in that time frame. But what I didn't realize is that you have to pay a whole mess load of taxes, and then also, long story short, there was some stuff that my office manager was doing that wasn't doing that caused me to have to pay the state a whole mess load of money. I literally financially reset to zero at the age of 40. And when I say reset to zero, as if you got kicked out of your house as a high school kid, you graduated and you had no money in the bank and you had to start completely over. That's what I did at the age of 40. I had to completely start over. So after that, I went to the motorcycle industry. I made through the ranks really fast. I became one of the top salesmen in the company at the particular unit or store that I was at. And then I also helped start up, which will be very close to near and dear to your heart, being with Shared Drive. I helped start the BDC, the Business Development Center, which is basically what OSCs are in our industry. And this is years back. So we're talking 18, 19 years ago, started up a BDC. So the auto industry has really been changed ever since. They depend heavily on it. Over 90% of all deals flow through their BDC in a Harley Davidson dealership in one way, shape, form, or another. That's pretty high numbers. So OSCs, you got something to work for. If you can attribute into 90% of the deals, there's a number, a goal for you, and they can match Harley Davidson's numbers.
Yeah.
And then I got tired of that. I got disenchanted by it because of how much unscrupulous practice there is in that industry. And a friend of mine who owns Outhouse asked me if I'd come help him set up a sales program, policies, procedures, and follow-up content, etc. So I did. And then when I was done and got that all set up, he said, "How'd you like to just stay and do it?" And I did it. So I've been in the industry now 10 years. I love Outhouse. I love the home building industry. As a general rule, I like the majority of it. We really aren't just selling a product. We're selling people's homes, their dreams to live in a home. And going back to that poor Kevin that lived in a trailer with his mom struggling and working 2 and 3 jobs at a time, having a home is pretty paramount.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty nice for sure.
Yeah.
That's an incredibly powerful story, and I just can't imagine, like you said, like, having to start over, and that's gotta be so scary, and just it takes a lot of courage to do that. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Now I wanted to go back to you were in cycling and in the Marines, and I'm sure there was like so many lessons that you learned through all of these different industries and these different experiences. So how do you feel like that has impacted your work today and your career now? What did you take from that to propel you forward?
Actually, several. So back to the cycling days, there's a lot of preparation that goes into race day. When you see somebody on a podium, you aren't just seeing that they kicked everybody's butt that day. You are seeing the culmination of all the effort they put into it for a year or an entire season leading up to that. There's some natural ability too, but for the most part, you really can only take natural ability up to that 85, 90% ratio. That last 10%, which is what separates the winners from the not winners, is all that work and prep that goes into it. So I'm a firm believer in making sure that you prepare for something ahead of time, whether it be getting an attack list of clients you want to go reach out to, or setting up your CRM to where you are actually going into your CRM and setting up your tasks that you're going to do on a repeating basis and setting up automations, et cetera, for that sake. So that's what I took away from the cycling industry, more so than just timing of knowing when to sprint, when not to sprint. That's a whole different beast. But
Yeah.
realistically, it came down to prep. In the Marine Corps, I just learned that everybody has a shot. And no matter what walk of life you come from, you have a shot in this world to do whatever you want to do. It comes down to you still have to be that person that puts your nose on the grindstone. You're the person that has to turn the wheel. You're the person that has to erect the antenna. You're the person that has to bake the cookies in the sales center when the model home. You're the person that has to get up and put your clothes on and press your clothes and make your bed. All those things I learned from the Marine Corps, that it is important. I also learned a hierarchy and that you have to have respect for not only those that are superior to you in the hierarchy of a company, but also have respect for the people that are your equal or beneath you in a company. There's what is the saying? You should treat your CEO or treat your janitor the same way you treat your CEO. And I've taken that to heart. So I don't care what walk of life you are. I don't care if you're first day hire OSC or 20-year veteran in the sales team or a sales leader. You're going to get the same treatment from me in the fact that I will respect you as a human being first. Then you have to earn it. And that's the other thing I learned in the Marine Corps is you don't get promoted unless you earn it. So you do have to earn it there. What I learned in the bicycle industry, not in the racing, but on the bicycle side, is that I had two rules that I followed. And I don't remember, truth be told, I don't remember where I picked these up. But one is that you should treat everybody as if they're a millionaire and can buy everything in the store. Even for those that don't, who are you to crush their dreams into dreaming of owning that $10,000 bicycle or that ridiculously chrome laden Harley Davidson or that 5-bedroom home with a library built into it? It's not your job to crush their dreams. It's your job to educate them on how they can get there. And whether that is reality or not, that's a whole different story. So treat everybody as if they're a millionaire that can buy everything. Therefore, you're never going to piss anybody off. You're never going to assume that somebody can't and ruin a sale. I sold a bicycle. The first high dollar bicycle I ever sold was to the keyboard player for Kansas, Matt Southard. He came in our store looking like a homeless dirtbag. He was wearing cutoff shorts. He was wearing like this. Back then, they were mesh beater shirts. I forget what they called them, but they're basically like football jerseys with the sleeves cut off. He came in
Yeah.
with one of those, and our manager wouldn't give him the time of day. So he came over and asked me some questions. So I answered him this question. My manager kept interjecting, saying, "Oh, basically pushing it off, saying you're wasting your time." And it was really rude. And the guy basically looks up at our owner who was sitting in this up pedestal up higher, not a pedestal, but her office was located above the sales floor so she could see up the entire sales floor. He says, "Man, you look important. What is your job here?" And she goes, "I own the place." And he said, "I'm going to be buying a bicycle. I want to buy that bicycle." And he pointed to this $7,000 tandem on the wall, which is a lot of money in 1984, I think is when this happened. And he said, "I want to buy that bicycle. And if this guy has anything to do with that, I won't buy it. I want to buy it from this guy," which he pointed right at me. So she goes, "That's totally fine." She came down and she got a deposit from him, which was $1,000. He literally pulled it out of his nasty old jean pocket. Come to find out, he comes to pick up the bike when it was finally ready and done and set up and built the way he wanted it built. He pulled up in this tour bus RV. We're talking $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 job. I don't know how much it was. It was a lot of money though. It had a boat on the roof of it, and it had a car that was towing behind it. It was one of those high-end Range Rovers, Land Rovers. But regardless, it was badass. The guy comes in, he brings in all these Kansas albums and then his own personal album that he had. So I sold a bike to a multimillionaire that was a rock star. So I learned a very valuable lesson that you can't judge a book by its cover. So don't judge a book by its cover. Treat everybody like they're a millionaire. And then I also picked up this good, better, best mentality. Don't try to pigeonhole somebody into just the only item that you sell. When somebody would come in and they would say, let's say, Sarah, you came in and you were like, I'm just getting started in cycling or triathlon, and I just want the cheapest shorts I can get. I'm going to show you those cheapest shorts. Let's say they're $20. Sarah, these are $20. And you can see here that I take my hand, I'd stretch it inside the material, and I'd say, you can see light through this. You're also going to see your butt crack through this. That's how cheap these are. You can buy them. I can also say this pad, there's nothing to it. Then I would show her the best. I would show Sarah and say, Sarah, look at these shorts. Yes, they're $180, but these are the absolute best the industry has to offer. Feel the difference in the density of that pad. This is awesome. Stitching, the material has a nice hand to it. And then I'd show you the middle one, the better, the better product. And when I show you that better product, I say, you know what the secret is here? This is all the same stuff that the best one was 2 years ago. So if you're just getting started, isn't that good enough for you? And you can still enjoy the sport. I sold so many those middle ground cycling shorts, which, by the way, had the highest margin of any of the items out there. And it wasn't a margin-based decision. It was based off of giving somebody that good, better, best option and letting them choose what worked out best for them. And yes, did I steer them toward the middle one? Absolutely, I did. But I also made more money on the middle one. So there you go.
Yeah, but you also show respect that way to people, not saying, "Oh, I know you couldn't afford this." You're still going to show it to them. You'd be like, even if they don't buy it now, they know what their goal is, or they have all the information that way. I think as I owned a business and I own Share Drive now, and it's easy for you to put your own situation into someone else's. And I heard somewhere it was like, don't what's expensive to you is not expensive to everyone. So you don't really know, like you said, like with that other guy, you might not have been able to tell that he had all of that money, but he did. And that wasn't expensive to him at all at that point, potentially. So that's something that I've had to teach myself because I'm not a salesperson and I get anxious to start talking about money. And it's some people that's not expensive to them. So don't tell them that it is.
So I bought a new house back from Trend Homes. They're since been out of business. They didn't survive the housing crash. And I bought that with my second wife. And when we went in, we had a certain budget in mind. Believe this or not, it was $135,000 was our budget. That was the max we were going to spend, not going to go a penny over. And we were approved for more, but that's all we were approved for, or that's all what we set our mind to doing. So we looked at this house. We looked at the floor plan that we liked the best. However, it wasn't ideal. It was just doable. And for only $15,000 more, so 145 or 100, would that have been 150? 150 instead of the 135, we could have bought the house. So my salespeople that are on this call or listening to this podcast, they know 15,000, that's a nothing burger. 15,000, you could buy your dream house instead of buying a house that's doable. Guess what? That house was just doable. And if we would have spent just that extra $15,000, which equates to nothing on the payment, when I say nothing, it's a very minuscule amount, we would have been in the dream house. Could have saved their marriage. Who knows? No, I'm just kidding. It wouldn't have saved the marriage. But the whole point is that by sticking to the guns of I'm just getting started in this, I don't want to spend that much money, you literally can be setting yourself up for failure. And that's what we did. So I can tell you from both a cycling short analogy and practice all the way to buying my first home, that I know firsthand that you can set yourself up for failure by sticking to your guns on one aspect of the purchase instead of considering other factors.
Yeah, for sure. And what I wouldn't do to go back to that price point for your dream house would be nice.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about like your sales and marketing now. What was the moment that you realized? I know for my career, like I have a specific moment where I was like, oh my gosh, like it's graphic design. I need to be in marketing. Do you have a moment like that? And what's the story behind that?
That's a great question. I'm going to go back to my mom. I have so many memories with her working job to job, making hardly any money, struggling every single month just to make do, doing without for herself so she could provide for her kids. I have so many memories of my mom not smiling. I have to struggle to find times when I remember my mom actually smiling about something. And they were so few and far between. So I like to bring a smile to somebody's face, whether it be self-deprecating and jokes about myself, or whether it be just about finding the lighter side of things or finding the sophomoric humor in scenarios versus just being serious all the time. That has allowed me to have that comedic aspect of enjoying life and being part of the sales team. Two, because my mom was always struggling, we moved many times. By the time I was 18 years old, we had moved over 18 times. That's one time a year for every year that I've been alive. So when you move from place to place, you have to meet new people every time. So I do have that gift of gab of being comfortable with walking up to a new person. Hey, how are you? I'm Kevin. I'd like to have a chat with you. How's your day going? Whatever those conversations lead to, I can be the what they call the jack of all trades and master of none. I can be the jack of all trades in every single conversation. There's not a topic out there that I can't be part of the discussion on. I can literally go into a room and talk with anybody, and that's something that salespeople are always good at, is being able to talk to people, be personable, be able to read people. I've always been able to do that. And again, when you have to go from place to place, you have to be able to read people and know, is this person somebody that is going to be a friend? Is this somebody that is not going to treat me right? Is this somebody that isn't treating me right? You kind of pick that stuff up. So from an early age on, I learned some of those skill sets that a lot of salespeople already have. And then two, when I found out that salespeople can actually make money, pretty good money, and there's sometimes it's work. Sometimes you got to grind. Sometimes you have to work. You have to do your emails. You have to do your handwritten cards. You've got to pick up the phone and make phone calls. You've got to do everything. So because of that, it's something you could do. And then on top of that, I stopped my education at an associate's degree in communications, which is the easy pathway for education, if you ask me. But I stopped there. So there's a lot of doors that get shut just based on education alone. Doors never shut. Sales. Everybody wants sales, and if you can make sales happen, they don't care if you have a third grade reading level. As we know from Chad Sanchagrin, doesn't he say something about he barely made it through school at a 1 point something grade point average? So it really doesn't matter what your background is. It's your ability to just understand and make conversation with people and be able to uncover what their problems are and be the solution or provide the solution for what they're looking for. So that's probably the time was when I was in high school, I realized that's probably going to be the route that I'm going to go.
Yeah. Gosh, you said so many things that I feel like we can make this whole episode on that. And just before we move on to, I just want to say moms are so badass. And like they really can, like you talked about like work ethic. And I don't think there's very many people that really embody that like work ethic and just being able to just get it done and make it happen through pretty much anything. And I think a lot of people, we have this idea that like we should have work-life balance and all of that, which we should. I absolutely believe that. But when you are building something, that's what it takes. And there's so many people that don't want to put in all that effort, or they feel like they can't, or whatever the reason is. But like that hard work, it does pay off. And look at what you've done coming up from all of that. And that's just that hard work. Just don't ever underestimate it. And I have so many things to say, but that I feel like is the biggest takeaway from all of that story is the hard work. Put in the work, put in the effort, and don't underestimate mothers. They will make it happen. All right, let's get on to our personal branding segment. So you started something that I think is super cool, and it really makes you stand out and unique, and that's the Big Deal pen. I have mine, and I know a lot of people are like, it's a moment. It's like, oh, I got the Big Deal pen from Kevin. And you've really made it a mascot in the home building industry. So I'd love to hear, how did you come up with that? How did that come to be?
It's a long story, but I'll give you an abbreviated version of it. This pen right here, you're getting to see it right here. This is the pen that I stole from my father. When I was very young, and I'd get to see my dad every other weekend, and it turned into every other month, and it turned into just special occasions or random occasions. I would take little tidbits that he would say, because you could still glean tidbits of or nuggets of knowledge from people that have completely treated you like trash your whole life. You can still garner something out of what their existence is and learn from it. And he basically told me, he said, hey, this is my dad voice because that's how he talked to me. He goes, now, Kevin, if you're ever going to have to sign anything, make sure you bring a quality pen with you, because nobody wants to sign with some generic crap piece of pen. Plus, it makes you look important when you have a nice pen. All right, so fast forward to when I was in the bicycle industry. I sold a high-end bike, and my manager gave me this nice pen, and he said, that's your first big deal. It was actually the tandem. He goes, that was your first big deal. You did it all on your own. And this is just my way of saying congratulations. It was this little gold cross pen. It was special to me. It was nice. And I was like, holy crap, that's the same thing my dad told me, that you should sign with a nice pen. And then when I was in the Marine Corps, a civilian gave me a nice pen, this really nice pen. It looked like a bullet. It had a little mechanism that works like a bolt action on a gun. But anyway, so he gave me that pen. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. So I know how I feel when I get a gift like that. What is it? It's just a pen. It's a utilitarian tool that we all use every day. What would he do if it's a nice pen or not? But you know what though? When it is a nice pen, it does feel good in your hand. It does make you feel important when you're signing something. And it allows you to have that small little big piece of memory of a graduation, of your first big deal. That's why it's called a big deal pen. Your first significant promotion. So I like to give these out. And here's my rules, my criteria. It's given to friends, family, and colleagues for major life events, for major improvements that they've made for themselves, like a promotion at work, their first big deal, or just for being outstanding human beings. I'm a humanist at heart, so I'm a firm believer that if you're just a good human being to your fellow person, that you hold a higher position in this world, in my heart, than other people do. It's just the way it is. It's the secret to Kevin's heart. Be good to other people. So that's what I do. What's that?
I said, and bring pizza.
And bring pizza. Yeah, the Marines brought pizza. But I'm a firm believer in that. So you actually got to see the original Big Deal pen that I had to steal. I stole it from my father, but because it was his pen, and I stole it to him when he was on his deathbed. It's not important when I stole it, but I did. I stole it from him. I took it off his little tray that had all this stuff on it. But anyway, I've literally given away hundreds of Big Deal pens to the tune of thousands of dollars. These aren't sponsored dollars that the company that I work for pays for. These are dollars I pull out of my own pocket because I feel it's important to acknowledge other people for their excellence, for their just humanistic life force, or just for great things that they've done in their life. That's the Big Deal pen.
So do you collect other pens, or do you?
I do. I've got pens dating back to 1920. My favorite one in my collection is one that I was given as a gift from the family at Outhouse when I became a partner. They gave me a 1940s signature edition pen from Schaefer. It's a museum piece. This thing is like perfect in every way, shape, and form. It's gold nibbed. It's a beautiful fountain pen. So yeah, I've got about 40, 50 pens in my collection that are like in a case, a display case that I pull out and I write with them every once in a while and change the inks out because you have to keep the ink fresh, of course. But yeah, I do. I have a small collection of pens.
That's awesome. I did not know that. I think what the things that people collect are so interesting, and it always has a story like that behind it. I know like people who have gotten the Big Deal pens, like people like actually really care about it. Like it's a cool thing for them. They're like, "Oh my gosh, like I got that pen." And it makes an impact in their life. It also makes you memorable, which may or may not have been your goal when you did it, but like it does. Like you are unique in the industry for having this thing. And when people are building personal brands, I feel like they're always looking to find what is the thing that I'm going to be known for. And it's if you're trying too hard, I feel like it comes across that way and then it doesn't land. And the Big Deal pen feels like it really landed because it's like authentic to you. You actually do like pens, and
I do. Not only do I like pens, but I also like the meaning behind it. I understand that some
yeah.
people I give it to, it's just a pen. I understand it. You can't give it with an expectation that they're going to be like, oh my God, it's the best gift I've ever got. That's not what you're going to get. But what you do get is you get to know that you made somebody feel good. Maya Angelou, she has this saying, I don't remember the exact quote, I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's something along the lines of people won't remember the things that you said. Sorry, but they're not going to remember listening to this podcast. Sorry, but that's just the way it is. They're not going to remember the things that you do or that you've achieved. You know, I did this job, I did that job, I sold this item. They're not going to remember that stuff, but they will remember how you made them feel. So I always want to touch people in the fact that in the state that they will feel that I acknowledge them for who they are and that I made them aware that people care. That's how I want people to remember me. So.
Oh, absolutely. That so closely aligns with how my philosophy is too. Like when you're trying to find your thing, it has to be authentic to you and it has to make people feel something. And I think the most valuable things are the things that make people feel because that's what lives on. It's like pictures. You take a picture of something because you want to remember it, but when you look at it, you remember the feelings, you remember the smells, you remember that person and how, they've impacted you. It's more than just, oh yeah, I've got this picture on my wall. So I was into photography for a long time, and that was the most exciting thing. It's like you're capturing a feeling in a moment that they're going to be able to relive then. And so it's more than just like having a thing. But I do want to ask you too, if someone is out there and they're looking to find their thing and they're looking to try to stand out and everybody wants that, it can be really difficult, and there's not a lot of unique things out there to do anymore. So what would be your recommendation for them or your advice on how they can find that?
There's only so many Eddie Murphys on the planet, and Eddie Murphy is the only Eddie Murphy that there is. There's
Mhm.
only one Chris Rock. There's only one Kevin Hart. I'm naming all these black comedians. I don't know why they're all black male comedians, but that's just the three that popped into my brain. But there's only one person that is that person. So you are uniquely you. This is such an endearing story here. One year at IBS, I was approached by Will Zhang. Everybody loves Will. He's the sweetest. He's super quiet, brilliant man. But he pulled me aside at one of I think it was the Lasso party of all places. He pulled me aside and he goes, Kevin, and he has a little bit of an English, and he speaks English, obviously, but there's a heavy accent there. And some of the euphemisms that we use in the English language, he doesn't quite have. And he was like, can I talk to you? I'm like, sure. Yeah, let's talk. And he pulls me aside and he goes, I want to learn how to be like you. And I was like, what? And he goes, you walk into a room and people know you. You walk in a room and people smile. And he goes, I want to learn how to do that. And I'm like, number one, flattered. And I was so flattered. And I said, but number two, I said, Will, you can't be this. Here's the thing. I walk in a room. I know I'm a heavy set guy. I know I've got a strong personality, but I use that to my advantage. I walk in and I make self-deprecating jokes about my weight. I make jokes about that I eat too much and don't have the physical ability to put down a fork. Trust me, I know this, but I say it in a lighthearted fashion, not to be offensive to other people, but just to have fun at my own expense. And I said, that is something that I have that just based off of my body's build and et cetera, and my overall personality. I said, you have your own draw. And the draw is that you are a flippant genius. And the draw is that you are a very kind person. And that you want to, and you're a generous person because he wants everybody to have this information that AI has and that we can uncover this and use this for good. The story though that I want to try to bring to this is not just that he pulled me aside, but that people do struggle with their own reality of who they are. And there's nothing wrong with just being you. So I'm a firm believer that you just have to be genuine and unapologetically authentic of who you are. If you're a little boisterous, hey, take that with a grain of salt. That's just who you are. If you're a little bit more reserved, if you're more of a librarian, but you still can hold on a conversation, great.
Mhm.
Leverage that. There's nothing wrong with that. Plus, there's people that love librarians. You know what I'm saying? Boom. No, I'm just kidding. But you have to basically know who you are, be proud of who you are. And if you aren't proud of who you are, work on those shortcomings. Work on the
Mhm.
things that make you less of desirable of a human that you don't want to be. And work on the things to make you better of who you do want to be. So that would be my thing is that you have to be genuinely you, no matter what you are.
Yeah. People get in their mind and those voices tell you like I'm not loud enough or I'm not big enough and they see big personalities and they're like I'm that's not me and if they force it it comes across as force. And if they just sit with that feeling they never actually do anything. But you actually do have so much more impact than you realize just walking into a room. And Will is such an amazing example of that because he's the sweetest guy. But he is so smart, and if you have a chance to sit down with him, he's just got so much knowledge, and I do think when he walks into a room, people notice. It's just not the same way that maybe someone notices that someone's louder or someone's really tall or they have a really deep voice or they have something else that's unique to
Yeah.
them. But the quiet people, they're often the ones that surprise you, so don't underestimate them. As a quiet person myself, I often feel like I need to be bigger, I need to be louder, I need to do something. But it's not true. That's just that insecurity talking.
That's get that insecurity out of the brain because
Yeah.
9 times out of 10 people don't even care. They don't care that you're not the loudest voice out there. They just
Mm-mm.
want to know, can they garner anything out of the relationship? Can you bring something positive to the equation? If that's what you're bringing, positivity, and it has to be quiet positivity, then great. That's what you're bringing. And that is enough.
And you can tell when someone walks into a room that has a quiet presence, the energy in the room changes. And maybe that person doesn't see it, but it happens. You can see people like physically shift towards certain people, whether they're talking or not. And that's so powerful. You have to take control of that power because that
So
is your essence and your brand.
I have a little secret that I'd like to tell everybody here today. I have a thing that I do at corporate events, at social events, at parties, and I do it every single time. I make it a point that when I walk into a room, I find that person that is and I'm not going to say socially awkward, but that person that is just, and you know what I'm talking about, where they're the ones that move to a corner of a room. They keep their head down when they're in a conversation because they don't want to be called on. They're worried that they might not be perceived as enough. I hunt those people down and I make them feel welcome. How are you doing in life? What's going on today? What brought you to this event? Any of those kind of things, because everybody talks to trust me, I get conversations all the time when I walk into a room. You do too. But that super quiet, introverted person that might have a boatload of stuff to provide and that took the time to show up. When you take the time to show up to something, you're wanting to provide something or get something out of it. So I make it a point that I find those people, no matter who they are, no matter what walk of life they are, no matter how awkward they are, and I try my best to make them feel welcome. Sometimes I scare the shit out of them. Sometimes I do. But for the most part, I try to make those people feel welcome.
Yeah, I'm sure they appreciate it because a lot of times being introverted it's a blessing and a curse because they are taking in so much information that everyone else maybe isn't, but they need that prompt sometimes to just come out of their shell a little bit
Yeah.
and come back to the room. And yeah, an extroverted person is like the best for an introvert because I just need you just to give me a little bit of what you have,
Yeah.
and it just makes such a difference.
It's the yin
Uh,
and the yang.
yeah, it's like opposites attract, all the things. I search out those extroverted people because I know they can bring out the extroversion in me, and it's not always the first thing that's there.
Yeah.
So, we've talked a lot about how, like, uplifting everyone and being that person to be the one to give a platform to someone else is important to you. And that's something that I think is super important too. Like I said, like, we don't need to step on anybody to get to the top. There's room for everyone there. And I'd love for you just to talk about why that's so important to your brand. If there's anything, that we
Yes.
already haven't already said, I think it's a really important thing that I wish more people would embody. And it's not like this competition, it's really a collaboration.
So let's take a little time travel back to the bicycle shop days. When I founded Tribe Multisport, there was a solid problem in the industry. And when roughly 61% of my clients were female, on the triathlon side, it's more female based, and on the cycling side, it's more male heavy, probably 70-30 split. Whereas in triathlon, it's more 50-50. So I did a couple things. One, I noticed that the industry had a disease, and that disease was, we called it shrink it and pink it. Their way of offering women's products was just to take a product that they sell to men, size it down, and color it pink. It was disgusting. Honestly, there was products. It was like they just painted a set of wheels pink. Whoopity doo! Or they painted this set of cycling shorts pink, but they didn't change the cut and the bias of it to fit more of a typical, more stereotypical female build. They had the same waistline. They were just awkward things. So I made it a point on a couple things. One, I hunt out companies that actually did develop products for women, and sometimes even by women. Like a good example is Cannondale. Cannondale made a bicycle not just smaller for women, but they actually took the differences between the typical biometric differences in the measurements of a female versus a male, and they actually changed the tubing set in its dimensions to match more of a female's body, and also went with a lighter gauge tubing because the average female weighed more or weighed less than the average male. Now, again, that only applies to 80% of the women. The women that were larger, taller framed, like let's say collegiate basketball, female basketball player, she's going to be built more in the male type consideration. So a taller men's frame would work for her. But a small, petite, an Ingrid, if Ingrid's going to go out there and buy a triathlon bicycle, if she buys just a scaled down men's bike, it's going to be too long in the top tube for her. It would be better if she got a bike that was actually fit to build her stead. So one, I sought out companies that provided women specific products. Two, I sponsored two groups. One was a women's only riding group called the Ladies. And it was a beginner centric riding group that allowed women that were just getting started in bicycling that time and time again said they felt intimidated walking to a bicycle shop, felt like they were being talked down to, or weren't giving the information that they needed to make an educated decision in their buying process. So we helped form the group called the Ladies, and the group is still in the business today, bringing women into the sport of cycling and triathlon. So we sponsored that. And the third thing that I did was I sponsored and founded the largest women's racing program in the western half of the United States. It's AZ Women's Racing. I don't think there's still a thing today. I think that did fizzle. But at one point, we had over 50 women on this cycling team that raced the entire Western region. So everything from California all the way to the Mississippi River. And I founded that team. I brought on sponsors like Metro Phoenix Bank, or I'm sorry, Metro Bank. I brought on LifeLock as a sponsor. There were a couple other sponsors too, but those two that I think of off the top of my head. So I'm a firm believer that you have to put your money where your mouth is. If you believe that women aren't being treated equally, you have to give them that position. Now, once the playing field is equal, it's your merit that gets you where you need to go. It's your work ethic. It's your success. It's your work history that's going to get you where you need to go. Your personality, your ability to close deals, those types of things. That can get you where you need to go past that point. But when it's not equal to start with, when it's not equitable, that's not a good scenario for anybody,
Yeah.
except for those on the
Yeah.
positive side of that equation.
The people on the top are like, that's great. No,
Yeah,
that phrase, like the shrink it and pink it, like as a woman just makes me so mad. You're like, oh, great, amazing. Don't put any extra thought into what you're doing. Like that would kill you. So I
I,
think that, go ahead.
I actually even became, you ready for this? Can you imagine buying a sports bra from a guy that looks like this? That's crazy. But guess what? I took the time to not only be educated, I even went through maiden forms. They have a little class they give to their employees. I went through that class to learn about the bra structure, measurements, tug points, all these different things. And I became a sports bra expert to the point where I could tell you, those are junk. Those are junk. Here's one you're going to need. Based on your cup size, this is one that's going to not give you mono boob. All those kind of things come into play. And when you're just buying them generically off the rack, you might not know that until you've already spent your money. So I could literally had a group, a following of women that would literally come in, seek me out to sell them their running sports bras.
Yeah. And it just takes a little bit of extra care. You're right. Like you just had to learn something that you didn't know
Yeah.
before. And I think we should all be doing that, especially salespeople. Like they need to be able to identify with a lot of different types of people, but marketing too. Like we need to understand a lot of different audiences so that we can create content for them that will speak to them. And if you're not doing that, you're really doing yourself a disservice in your career. And it just takes a little bit of extra. Take that class, do a little bit of research, read some articles about something that you don't understand. And it's going to make people feel seen in a way that you may not even realize, just that you know that.
Yeah.
I want to ask you one other question about being genuinely you. Have you ever felt like there was a moment where being yourself felt professionally risky? I think this is a fear that a lot of people have. They're like, if I show too much of myself, like it's gonna have a negative impact somehow, or this is an embarrassing thing to share, or this feels really vulnerable, and they push back on that. And it's human nature, but I was wondering, as someone who really always shows up as yourself and you don't seem to have those fears, I wanted to hear what your feelings were there.
I do. And I'll tell you, there's two scenarios that I can think of. One is walking into a room, being that I am so vocal and I'm so
Mhm.
noticeable in a lot of cases. There's a saying that there's a 90-10 rule. That 90% of the people are completely indifferent to you, will accept you for who you are. And there's 10% of the people that won't like you because you wear glasses, you're tall, you're short, you're black, you're white, you're whatever it
Totally.
is, you're too loud, you're too quiet, you interrupt too much in the conversation. Those kind of things can really be off-putting. And that 10 and not necessarily off-putting, but they can be negatives in the mind of that individual person that's receiving that. Me, I know that I'm 80-20. I'm not a 90-10. I know that 20% of the people, because I am a little obnoxious, and I know that I'm obnoxious, but that's genuinely me. I'm just a little bit crazy. But because of that, I know that 20% of the people out there are going to be off put by my boisterousness, my ability to walk in and just be silly. So what I have to do is I have to change that. I have to tone it down when I go to certain things. If I go to if I go to a MAME award or the Nationals, I have to be that 95% Kevin and turn off that 20% because you have to be much more professional in those types of environments. When I go to do a presentation to a builder, if I'm presenting to a builder that all of them are quiet and reserved and old school, I have to be a little bit more old school. You have to mold and morph your genuine, you still be genuine, but you have to tone down or swing up the level of you. You have to change that volume dial, if you will. So I have to bring down the volume dial at certain events. But outside of that, no, that's really about it. I truly do believe you have to still be who you are. And you're never going to please everybody. If you think you're going to please everybody, you're not. I don't care how pretty you are. I don't care how charismatic you are. There's always going to be somebody that you're not, that's not going to like you. I hate
Yeah.
I hate Channing Tatum. What's his name? Channing
Yeah.
Tatum. I mess up his name all the time on purpose because my girlfriend loves the guy. She's totally head over heels, gaga, in love with the guy. I personally hate him because of that. Yes, you're not, and he's done nothing to me, nothing wrong, but I don't like him because of that.
Yeah. So basically, if I'm going to rephrase what you said, is basically you have to be comfortable with the fact that not everyone is going to like you. And then also not really change yourself, but like maybe have different modes and just to understand like your environment and what mode is appropriate. But still, there's going to be people that don't like you, and that's just the way life is.
Yeah. And the thing about assumptions is that a lot of times people's assumptions are wrong. When I come in as obnoxious as that I am, there's people that'll make an assumption that's who I am all the time. I'm actually not. I'm quiet. When I'm at home, I'm a homebody. I've got 3,000 records. I could listen to records endlessly and just enjoy just chilling out with a glass of wine and not talking to anybody. But I don't know how to not talk to people when I'm out in public. Just how it is. You can't make assumptions that everybody is that way based off of just how you meet them that one day. Sure, there's a truth to first impressions, but don't let
Yeah.
that first impression cripple a potential fantastic relationship you can have with somebody.
Yeah. I hope someday you get to meet Channing Tatum so that you can decide if your first impression was right or not.
I'm sure my hatred of him is all just nonsense, but yeah.
That's okay. You're allowed to have people you don't like too. This has been so fun, Kevin. Thank you for joining us. I really love having these conversations that maybe everyone isn't having, something a little bit different and things that are close to you. And I just really thank you for sharing everything today. And I want to give our listeners a chance, if they aren't already connected with you or don't already know how to get in contact with you, how would they go about doing that? What would be the best way?
So obviously you can always contact me at kevinw@outhouse.net if it's something business related. If it's something personal, you can find me on Facebook. I'll friendify anybody until you give me a reason not to be friends with you. And then if it's a professional connection, LinkedIn, preferably.
Perfect. Awesome. And after you're done listening to this podcast, go over to the Home Builder Digital Marketing Podcast, listen to their latest episode there as well, and then come back here and see our next episode. Follow us here. If you have any questions or have any comments, make sure to leave those in the comments. We are down there, and tag Kevin as well so he can see them. So yeah, come back for our next episode. And thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in our next one. Bye, everybody.